probably thinking, Avowed woke? Why is he making a video about this now? This happened days ago. Which in 2024, something that happened days ago might as well have happened, 16 years ago. Who cares? Well, the reason why I'm making a video about this is because Avowed hasn't come out yet. It's not coming out for another couple months, so it still hasn't released. And also, I have noticed that ever since the Pronouns controversy surrounding this game, this issue has evolved into so much more than what it originally started. It has gotten to a point to where there's tons of drama, and paying attention to all the changes, you kind of notice that, well, I'll just wait for the dust to kind of settle and see what the real story really is about what's going on here, but it just never stops. Like every day there's something more that kind of like gets added onto it, and it's been this big domino effect of just controversy after controversy, not only surrounding this game, but honestly, more importantly, surrounding Obsidian Entertainment as a whole. And it doesn't make me happy to make a video like this or talk about stuff like this. And you might think, oh, well, everybody's already voiced opinions like this. Like, why are you doing this? I'm doing it because I can. But like I said, waiting the past couple days, things have changed dramatically. The issues with Avowed that have happened over the past week, it's not really even a woke issue. Or at least, let's talk about like what woke means. And I know a lot of people, they see it and they kind of cringe up at this point. Like it's been so overused and we hear it all the time. You hear woke and out of every type of entertainment or media, and it really does make certain people cringe, and then other people grabs their attention. But when I think of woke in games, I just have to clarify this. I don't think of one or two different things that are put into the game that makes it the way it is. I think of woke as a deeper, more rooted thing. It's not just what's in the game, it's the development of the game itself. It's the environment that the game is made in. Because obviously the reason why these types of things are put in games is because the environments that are creating the games, it incentivizes people to put these things in, even though they're extremely divisive, and how most people don't really care about them or even really want them in their game at all. But it still doesn't change the fact that they do it anyways. And so when I think of woke, like I'm saying, is like I don't think of it as just one or two things that's in a game. I think of it as more deep-rooted issue, and we're seeing that with Obsidian. And like I said, it's sad. Like I don't want to have to talk about how this great company that has created so many amazing titles that I've, fallen in love with is doing this type of shit that just doesn't just make them look bad, but kind of just depresses me. It makes me think, wow, like all these great companies, they're all just corrupted, and there's just some weird thing going around. And obviously there's tons of opinions and videos that talk about like why that is. But like I said, with the definition of woke, I think of woke as not just an ideology or a political thing that's put in a game, but it's just like a sickness that's in the game. And we see that with Avowed. It's also like a more deep-rooted issue. It's not just the game, it's the company that's making the game. We had the art director freak out on people, laugh about how he's pissing people off. All these, it's like, oh, I'm glad these people are upset or mad, which is just so stupid, because Avowed isn't a new series or IP. This is an existing IP that Obsidian has, and I'm a big fan of Pillars of Eternity. If you're on this channel, you might have noticed that a couple months back I made a video where it's really just me kind of showing my class and like my build and stuff, but it's like over an hour of just straight gameplay with me talking on Pillars of Eternity 2, because I played the shit out of that game this year. It was such a good game, and I love Pillars of Eternity. I love the first one, I love the second one a lot more, but I love both those games. I love the world, I love the story, but Avowed is a spin-off of Pillars. We all know that. And the only reason they're making Avowed is to reach a new audience. If they just wanted to keep the same audience that they had with Pillars of Eternity, they would have just made Pillars 3. They wouldn't have made Avowed. They wouldn't have spent all this time and resources on this game. And this is the biggest game I think they've worked on. So this is one of their biggest projects ever, if not the biggest. And they're obviously making it to reach a newer audience, and they want this to be like their flagship series. Just like how they have Outer Worlds, they want this, they want Pillars, they want Avowed, they want it to be their Elder Scrolls in a way, right? Their Fable or whatever. They want it to be their big flagship IP, or at least one of them. That's what I'd imagine any company really wants when they make games. And so that's why they're making this. They're trying to reach new people. And to have the art director just go online and just kind of insult people, block people, and cuss people out, it really just kind of defeats the point. They know what they're doing when they put this type of shit in games. This is another reason with like the terminology around woke and wokeism. They know that this stuff isn't liked. They know that people don't really care about this stuff. See, when games started doing pronouns and started doing stuff like that just a few years ago, nobody really cared. I think Starfield was the first time where it kind of had a controversy, and I made a video about that too. Like, I didn't really care about the pronouns in that game because ultimately it was just a question at the very beginning. It never came up ever again while you played the game. It never impacted anything. It literally was just something they slapped on at the very end. You could tell it was just a menu they added, and they obviously added it because they had an incentive to or whatever, but it was useless. Basically, it didn't affect the game at all. And then you have a game, fast forward, you have like Dragon Age Veilguard, where it's like shoved down your throat, and it's at a point to where the people who were writing that game, everybody that plays it basically just says, out of the fucking 50 to 60 hours of gameplay, how many hours of good story writing is there? There's like 5 hours. They said it's like the first like few hours of the game, the beginning, and then the last like 2 hours. Everything else in between that is just bullshit and retarded, and nobody fucking likes it, and it's just annoying, and it's uninspired and unoriginal, but they still have all this time to put in trans shit and non-binary shit and a whole fucking segment where she's like doing push-ups or some dumb shit that they put in the game. They have all this time and effort to put this stuff in, and it's obviously motivated. It's their ideology, it's their narrative, it's their messaging. They're putting that, and games have always had stuff like that. There's never really been a great game that didn't have some type of politics, but this type of stuff just doesn't sell well. And I mean that in more than just games, in movies and TV shows and just in real life. And people just don't like it. And it's not even just an American thing. It's just, there's people all over the world. They don't like it. They don't like the fact that it's being shoved down your throats. They don't like the fact that you have to choose this shit. It's so much more complicated and just stupid, and people get upset and they get angry. And I'm not saying if you identify as that, or if you're trans, or if you're whatever, that, you don't belong in the world, or you shouldn't play games or whatever. Like, I don't think that at all. But obviously there's a weird thing that's happening to where this stuff is not getting implemented that well. You have games, however, like Baldur's Gate 3, where it has tons of woke shit in it. It really does. But the writing is so good, it's so well made to where it outweighs it. And it's never like unfair, Like, you can be gay and all that stuff in the game, but you can also be straight. Just how you can be good in the game, and you can also be incredibly evil. It gives you the choices to make your own decisions, which is what great RPGs do. And so I don't care if it has that stuff in the game. It's like, I'm not going to do any of that shit. But the fact that it's an RPG, and the whole point of RPGs is choosing shit and dialogue and all this stuff, it gives me the option to do the opposite or to do other things, then I don't care. It's not that bad. But then you have stuff like Dragon Age Veilguard, where you can really only ever be a good person. It doesn't let you really do anything bad. All the dialogue options are the same. It's like they didn't put any effort in giving you alternatives or different choices or decisions, and the only ones they did give you were just woke shit. And that's why that game sucks, and that's why it didn't sell well, because you could just see it. You could see it in the art. You could see it in the marketing. Like, it was just there. Like, you just knew by watching that stuff, like, there's something off, there's a little something weird, and then guess what? Turns out it's full of this woke shit, it's full of all this shit, and nobody resonated with it, you know? And the small audience of people that did, it obviously wasn't enough to kind of guarantee success. And BioWare might actually, you know, that might be the last game they ever make. Who knows? I mean, like, who knows what's going to happen to them at this point? But then when you look at, like, Avowed, for instance, it doesn't really help the fact that, you know, the art director who is, you know, had a huge influence on the game is coming out when people are talking about the pronouns, and he's saying, oh, I went out of, you know, we did all this, and we did this for the game, and we put this in the, and I am glad that you guys are pissed off. It's like, bro, that's not what you're supposed to be doing right now. And obviously they know it's not going to sell well, because like we just talked about, this stuff is not cool with people. People don't like this stuff. It annoys them. It used to be we didn't really care, but now it's to a point to where it's annoying and we just don't want it there. It's like, all right, we gave you a chance, we gave you a shot to make your case, and you just got annoying. Now it's just kind of like, it just makes us roll our eyes, and it just makes us not want to fucking play this. Like, don't yell at me for saying that. That's obviously what's happening, because games that put this stuff, you know, on their, you know, the front sleeve or whatever, they don't sell well, they don't make any money, people don't play them. That's not what you should be doing with this game. These are very divisive things at this point. Like, I'm not saying it can't have gay characters or whatever. To the people that are saying that, I have seen certain YouTubers talk about that, saying like, oh, there's gay characters, or there's this person's gay, or they look gay, or whatever. Obviously, they've never played Pillars. Pillars of Eternity has gay characters in it. There's stuff that comes up randomly that is like gay interactions, but they also have straight shit. Like, that's the thing. They also have other, like, that's what I'm saying. Goes back to the Baldur's Gate 3 scenario. It's like, it has a balance. But Pillars didn't have pronouns. And you know what? Baldur's Gate 3 didn't have pronouns either. It didn't have he, they, ze, them, whatever the fuck. It didn't have that shit, you know? And I feel like that's kind of like, at this point, it is a political stance. It's one that people are not okay with, and they just don't like. It's overstayed its welcome. And I don't know how deep it is in the game. I hope it's just like Starfield, to where it's just a question at the very beginning. Because if that's the case, I can get past that. I don't like it, but fuck it. Like, I'll still play it because I really do like this world, and I am hyped for the game. Like, I really want to play it, you know? But is it going to be like Dragon Age Veilguard, to where it's just so rooted into the game, and it's just going to be annoying, and it's just, the writing is going to be shitty, and it's going to be like bad? Like, I don't know. We'll have to see when it comes out. But definitely, because of stuff like Dragon Age Veilguard, when it does come out, pay attention to the reviewers. Pay extra close attention to the reviewers, because there are a lot of people that came out and said Dragon Age Veilguard was a masterpiece. It's the greatest game of all time. Best Dragon Age game of all time. Best this of all time. And then you see real people play it, and they're like, what the fuck is this shit? This sucks. This has shitty writing. Somebody posted a clip from that game. There's like a straight relationship you can have in that game between these two characters, and it's a scene where they're like kissing, and they were like, holy fuck, even the straight kissing scenes are like gay, because of like how weird this game is. It just has a vibe that's just weird, you know? And that's just the case, bro. That's just how people feel about this stuff. And so that's obviously why Avowed didn't want anybody to fucking see any of this shit. They really did try to hide it. And if you think that they didn't, you're coping, man. They really did not want people to notice this stuff, and it was a slip up. And that's why it kind of blew up in their face, and they handled it really horribly. And what makes this even more insane is the fact that you have a writer from Obsidian who used to write for some of their games. And this isn't some random idiot who like worked on like 2 or 3 different games for them as a freelancer or some shit and then got fired. This is Chris Avellone, who played a pivotal role in creating some of Obsidian's greatest games. The games that put Obsidian Entertainment on the map, made their name have recognition and respect in the gaming industry. He played a big role in those games as a writer. Still to this day, You know, remember, or well, I guess this was back in 2019 or whatever, but remember when Outer Worlds was being marketed? What's one of the first things you saw in those early trailers, and all the trailers, from the creators of Fallout New Vegas? They still use that game as like a selling point for their future titles, from the creators of Fallout New Vegas. And Chris was one of the writers for that game. He played a big role in you know, making this company what it is, whether you want to admit it or not. But he came out on Twitter and he talked about it spiraled out of control. And I'm sure if you've been keeping up with the controversy at this point, you probably know about this already. But he came out and he talked about the issues Obsidian's having, especially with the art director. And he pointed out how there's a good chance that if you tried applying for a job at Obsidian Entertainment in the past couple years, there's a good chance that Obsidian used discriminatory hiring practices based on like political beliefs or race, which is insane. And he literally said this dude who worked there played a huge role in making that company what it is. He literally came out after saying all that, right? And he literally said, you might have a civil case. You should probably sue them. This dude is talking about suing this company. He's telling people if you applied for a job in art direction or whatever, there's a good chance they probably didn't hire you just based off your skin color or your beliefs or whatever. Like, that's what he's hinting at. And he's saying you should get a lawyer. You might have a civil case. This might be some easy money for you if you tried getting a job there. Because with this art director who played a huge role in hiring certain people for the production of the game, which they've been making for like, what, 5-6 years or some shit? They've been working on it for a while. He's saying it's like there's a good chance that they're doing illegal shit over at Obsidian with the way these people are thinking. And this goes back to what I was saying with what is woke? What does that mean? I understand we all fucking hate that word. You think I want to say woke? You think, dude, think about how stupid that word sounds. It's so dumb. I don't want to say it. But it's not my fault. These companies are doing this type of shit. Like, what else are we going to call it? So that's why we use the word woke. So this is what woke is. It is not just the games themselves, not just a gay character or whatever. Fuck that. That's not what it is. It's the actual companies. It's the fact that there's an environment that this ideology, it breeds this type of environment that ultimately is discriminatory. It's, you know, it's these people, they think they're inclusive and they think they're progressive and they're accepting and loving of all, but they'll turn around and they'll hate on people and scream at people and yell at people and, according to Chris, you know, do illegal shit when it comes to hiring people, discriminating against certain people. It is a cult-like way of thinking, and it's an ideology that has been rooted at the core of so many different companies. And it sucks because, you know, it's sad. Like, I don't want to have to talk about this stuff, and I've said that so many times because it sucks. It sucks how every major Titan studio nowadays is going through this bullshit. And I think Avowed is gonna get a really raw end of like this whole type of situation, because you can have games and you can have writing and you can have Avowed could be a really good game. That's what I'm saying, with really good writing. It could be kind of like Baldur's Gate 3, to where it gives you all those different choices. It has the woke shit, but it's still good. But that might not even be enough to save it. And like I said, like, this is a big game that they're working on. They spent a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of time on this. And you might be thinking, oh, well, they have Microsoft in their pocket. You know, Microsoft has they have unlimited money. No, they don't. You think Avowed has unlimited money? Look at fucking Arcane Studios. Let me go ahead and tell you something about Arcane real quick. If Redfall launched differently, if it launched just as shitty as it did, but if it made more money, if it sold more copies, the studios that Microsoft closed would not have closed down. They closed down a studio for Arcane, the one that worked on Redfall. They closed that studio down. If they would have sold more and made more money, Microsoft would not have closed them. They would have kept them going. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to make money. They would have been like, oh shit, the game sucks, the launch is horrible, but it made money, so now we can pay you guys to fix it. Just don't do it again. That's what would have happened. But no, it didn't sell. Everybody knew it was going to suck, and then it did suck. And guess what? You have other examples of games that are amazing and they sell horribly, and what happens to their company? They still get closed down. Microsoft has a lot of money. Arguably has unlimited money. Whatever you want to say. But that doesn't mean Obsidian does. Obsidian is under fire. Obsidian has to perform. It has to make money. You think Microsoft gives a fuck about Obsidian? They do not. They don't give a shit. And I understand it's going to be on Game Pass. That's the only reason I'm probably going to play it, is because it's on Game Pass. I'm not going to buy it. But I can't imagine all this type of bad press and the art director, throwing, temper tantrums, and now you're having like possibly legal issues with like discriminatory hiring practices and all this crazy shit. I can't imagine that's going to, help the sales of the game. And I don't know how those metrics work with like how well a game has to perform on Xbox Game Pass for it to be considered successful, but it still has to make some money. It still has to sell. Redfall came out on Game Pass, I think, right? Well, it's on Game Pass now. Nobody plays it. I'm not saying Obsidian is going to close down if this game sucks, but any dream for this IP succeeding, and for people like me who enjoy Pillars of Eternity, any dream for us getting a third game, or possibly, let's say I like Avowed and I want a sequel or whatever, there's a chance that might not happen. There's a chance Obsidian might have to go back to being a one game release every like 4 or 5 years type of shit. Like they're not going to be able to do multiple projects at the same time. They might have to downsize. It's an insane amount of like different things that could happen. And right now, none of them are looking good. Like it's not looking like Avowed is going to break the ceiling and is going to be a player favorite. It's already hated by a lot of people. And the only people that are defending it are Obsidian fanboys and Pillars of Eternity fans. And I'm both of those. I love Obsidian and I love Pillars of Eternity. But you got to call a spade. This is horrible marketing, and they obviously knew this isn't what people wanted because they were trying to hide the fact that it had pronouns. But that's the fact. Like that's the point. Like that one thing they did, like that decision they were proactively making because they knew the stuff they were putting in the game would turn off tons of people because they're trying to make money. They're trying to get new fans. So they're trying to hide that stuff so you only see it until you've spent your money, until you've played the game. So that way they're like, yeah, we got you, and we can try and win you over. There's a good chance because of the way they were handling all of that, that might not even happen. They're going to sell. They're going to make some money. They're going to get people that play it off of Game Pass. Like, don't think for a second they're not. It's not going to sell like 0 copies. It might sell as bad as Dragon Age Veilguard. It might sell better, might do worse. Who knows? But the whole point of Avowed, like, it is to bring in newer people into that world and into that IP and that franchise. It's to introduce all these different things. And they've just really done kind of a bad job at generating excitement. I really do like the way the gameplay looks. I really do like the way the dialogue looks. There's a lot of good things about it. I don't like the fact about how you can't be a cipher. You can't do that class. I mean, who knows? They might add that as like a DLC. But that's like one of the biggest points of Pillars of Eternity is the fact that there's a cipher class. It's like a whole thing, right? Lore-wise and all this, and you can't do it. It's almost like with Dragon Age where you can't be a blood mage. It's like it's such a cool, interesting, unique class that you can do in those games, and you can't really do it. That's a big turnoff for me. That has nothing to do with the game being woke at all. That's just a choice I don't like. But like I said, it could just be something that they're going to add in later with DLC. But everything that this game has been doing over the past like 2 weeks with the way they've handled PR and the way the art director has acted, and now you're having a low-key whistleblower, which isn't just some random dude. This is a guy who's well respected in the game industry. This dude's coming out and telling people, hey, you should, this company I helped bring to greatness, you should sue them. It's not looking good, man. And so that's why this whole idea of wokeness in games and woke ideology and trans and non-binary and all this shit, it's gone, man. It's gone. If you are making games, I don't know if any developer or anybody's going to be listening to this. I doubt it. But if you are, I'm just saying, literally just me, like, forget what my opinion is, just from a marketing standpoint. If your main goal is you need to make a game that sells and brings in new people to your IP or whatever, do not put this shit in there. Because Starfield got away with it because it's Bethesda and it didn't really do anything. A lot of people didn't even notice the pronouns thing. When I made my character the first time, I didn't even notice it. Like, that's how hidden it was, and it didn't affect anything else. But if you're gonna do something like Dragon Age Veilguard, where you have entire cutscenes with people talking about being non-binary and doing push-ups and all this dumb shit, all this insane shit, bro, if you're gonna be doing this stuff, you're playing with fire and not in a good way. Especially if you're a studio that's trying to kind of make a name for itself or prove itself again. Because Obsidian is slowly kind of falling into the area that BioWare fell into 8 or so years ago. It was the idea of that all the people that made the great games that were the reason why people loved that company to begin with, they're not there anymore. And the games that they make are just completely tone deaf. And with Obsidian, they're trying to make this game. They're spending a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of time on this thing. And it could be an amazing game. But the fact that they've decided to add these things, that might be the thing that sinks the boat. Especially with everything being so online nowadays. And, you know, people just don't like this stuff. And it's kind of came to a boiling point. And it could be a good game, but this stuff might be a reason for people not to play it. Like, there are going to be people who are going to refuse to play and buy this game because you put that stuff in it. They would have played it if that wasn't the case, right? You know, they would have played the game if you didn't include the stuff, but because you did, now you're not going to get that audience. And that's what I mean by this woke stuff is divisive. It's political and it's divisive at its core. It divides people. And just because you think certain people might want to play it because of that, guess again. You know, there are going to be people who are going to applaud you for adding all this shit into the game, and guess what? They don't play games. They don't spend money on games. They don't spend time on games. They're not going to buy your shit. But also at the same time, there are going to be people that are mad that you added it in, and they're going to be complaining and bitching about it, but they would have never bought the game to begin with, like, even if you didn't have all this woke shit in it, you know? So it goes both ways. You could argue and say, well, fuck them, like, who cares? But also at the same time, that's not what you're really supposed to be doing with a title like this. You're supposed to be making a game that's exciting, and it's supposed to draw in new audiences with still remembering the old ones. That's the goal you're supposed to kind of hit. And me being somebody who actually comes from that audience, somebody who actually was excited for this game, you're kind of making it harder. You're making it very hard for me to support something like this, especially with an ideology that's so perversive and divisive, and now it's kind of exposing a company for potentially doing illegal, discriminatory hiring practices, which is insane. Like, I don't even know where that's going to lead to. That could be something that goes on for years. Who the fuck knows? This wokeness in games, this wokeness in Avowed, it's kind of run its course. To anybody who cares about those types of issues or those types of movements or whatever, if that's something you really truly believe in, you know, I believe people should have, you know, the right to think what they want. I believe freedom of speech is important. I'm all for all that shit. But this thing was something that the entertainment industry, from games to movies to the workplace environment, everywhere, it kind of got shoved down everybody's throats, and they were trying to sell everybody on it. And they did. They sold a lot of people on it. I know people personally I've met in my real life who are all for this types of shit. But I know a lot more that don't like it. And I'm one of those now. Like, I don't fucking want this shit in anything. It annoys me. It doesn't make me think, oh, this is going to be a great piece of writing. You know, it's going to have an amazing... No, it just makes me, you know, fucking not want to play it. Because there's a good chance that I'll just be wasting my time. I don't know what else to say. I hope that it's like Starfield to the point to where it doesn't really affect the game. But if it's something that's like super rooted to the core of the writing, like it was with Dragon Age Veilguard, I fucking hope if you're doing that, you do it from every other avenue. You have shit that's like anti-woke and anti-fucking all that shit too, because that's the only way you can properly do that type of stuff, really. You know, and I'm not saying you have to get like extreme with it. I'm just saying it's like with an RPG, you have to give people options, and I just don't know if this game is gonna have that. I hope it does, but there's a good chance that none of that matters. It could, like I said, it could be the greatest game of all time. Most people who are going to see this, they're just going to be turned off and not want to play it, and that's not what you should be doing. That's not what Obsidian has to do right now, and that's not what Avowed has to do. It has to do the opposite. And I honestly think there's a huge chance that that's too late now. Like, it's not going to happen. So that's what I've been thinking. You know, it's 3 a.m. I've just been thinking about this stuff for the past few days. I thought I need to talk about it. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. This video wasn't scripted. This was just me talking, but I really appreciate it. If you enjoy this type of content, you know, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with your friends and everybody, and let me know what you think. Like, do you think this game is being woke? Do you like woke shit in games? Do you think it's too much? Are you annoyed with it like I am? Do you want more of it? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? This is something that we should all be having a dialogue about, especially as people who play games, because at the end of the day, you know, hearing people from outside of this space give their opinions on this, it's like, it's fine, it's whatever, but honestly, their opinions don't matter. They don't play games. They don't play RPGs. They're not fantasy nerds. They don't like this shit. This is for us. So what do we think about this? I've said what I thought, but now I want to hear what you think. So go ahead, leave your opinions down below, and let's talk about it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys later.